Let's dig in specifically on China. This is obviously a major part of the dynamic here, major impetus for the launching of this trade war. And Trump issued this on Truth Social yesterday. Let's put it up on the screen. He says, yesterday, China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs, non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization, I can't say that, of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation, despite my warning that any country that retaliates against the U.S. by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, that would be today now, April 8th, the U.S. will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. That would be tomorrow. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, Saagar, assuming that these new tariffs on top of the original tariffs go into place, you're talking about a more than 100% tariff on
104 specifically.
Yes, specifically 104% on China.
Yes, man, that must be really tough actually for the enforcers because you can't just double it whenever you come to the price. You actually have to multiply for the 104.
Sure.
All right, let's go through some of the things. And this is, again, we need respect for China. We can be in terms of onshoring and all of this, and we can acknowledge many of the sins of the past about stealing, technology, trade barriers, currency manipulation. All of that is old news. Now we are living in 2025 in a world where they have one of the world's best car companies, are a net exporter, and have some of the best manufacturing, high tech and low tech, in the entire world. So let's go and put this up there on the screen from the Financial Times. I was genuinely amazed reading through all of this. The Chinese know exactly how to destroy us, and they have a whole of government approach. They don't need to, mess with the Federal Reserve. They don't have to deal with Congress. They are basically doing everything we would want to do if we wanted a coherent tariff strategy. So let's start with the first thing. Not only did they impose the 34% reciprocal tariff, 34% in terms of what we put into place, they immediately also held back several things that they could use for maximum pain on the U.S. So first example is control of rare earth minerals. Some 90% of rare earth minerals, so-called rare earth minerals, as Ryan likes to say, come from China. At the very least, the finished refined products, over 90%, all of them coming to the United States require an export license. Those export licenses, you can basically say goodbye to that if something like this goes into effect, even with the tariff. They'll simply just not export it. Number two, there was a theory that this would destroy the domestic Chinese economy. Well, unlike this stupid country, what are the Chinese doing? They're saying, okay, well, we control our central bank, and it's all controlled by a single entity, the CCP. We will then move to immediately lower borrowing costs for all domestic business in China. We will basically facilitate a boom in terms of liquid money. Number two, we will pump as much money into the domestic economy as necessary to boost domestic demand and spending, and to make sure that our citizens do not have a decrease in quality of life and that business circle remains squared. Those are all of the things that they are doing and can do like this. Yeah. All of those, we have to rely on some, sage in the Federal Reserve to wake up from his nap 3 months from now. Hope and pray. We also, if we want any stimulus, what do we have to wait for? Mike Johnson. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get on top of that tomorrow.
They're going in the opposite
direction. They're actually going to cut
direction.
Right, exactly. So let's think about who you would rather be. Would you rather be the person who has full control over your entire economy, has deeply studied its enemy, who has studied now 4 years of stupid sanctions on Russia, which is the greatest training playbook in the history of mankind for the Chinese? Or would you rather be, we just had this, or you're going to hear a segment with Andrew Chen, the country which mindlessly scrolls TikTok and which buys Shein and Temu products and is literally addicted to it. I think I know which one I'd rather be.
Yeah, which at the center of our social contract is these cheap goods. Our public has not been primed to be willing to experience any pain around consumer goods. As, we saw in inflation, how much that hurt people and how much of a major political issue it became. And Saagar, to add to your list, another thing that the Chinese government has going for it, and I fully understand it's an authoritarian government, it's hard to know exactly what public opinion is, but Harvard did a study of public sentiment vis-a-vis the government, and it's extremely popular. I'm talking like 95% saying I'm either satisfied or highly satisfied. They have a lot more unity around their government than obviously here. Trump is very divisive. He is quite unpopular. He's, net underwater at this point. You have massive protests that were happening in the streets last weekend. So you have a society that is not at all bought in on this project whatsoever. And, I think that also gives them a tremendous advantage in terms of what they can ask their public to accept. And, we also, I think a lot of our mental models are very outdated. I was just thinking about the example of BYD. BYD, this giant Chinese automaker, seller of EVs globally and hybrid models as well. And we don't buy their cars. They don't rely on the U.S. domestic market. And guess what? BYD is growing like gangbusters.
Yeah, it is.
They are now selling more cars than Tesla does. In 2024, they sold 4.27 million vehicles. So it is an instance of, hey, guess what? They didn't need us. They didn't need us for this company to be successful. They didn't need us for this company to grow wildly. And they have the whole rest of the world that they can sell to. And I think your point about Russia is also a really important one, just in terms of how I've been thinking about this. Every mainstream economist thought that the devastating sanctions we put on Russia would be so destructive to their economy. I mean, we really tried to give them the financial death penalty.
That's why we don't even have tariffs on them, because we have no trade.
That's right.
Yeah, we literally cut them off.
All-out economic warfare against Russia. And guess what? I'm not going to say it didn't hurt them. And they also have the wartime economy to help to compensate. But it did not end them. It did not destroy them. They were able to figure it out because they had been thinking for a while and planning for a while, knowing that we are fickle and that they are an adversary, and knowing that this eventuality could be playing out. China has also been thinking and preparing and is in a much better position to shoulder such an economic blow than Russia is. So I think that if the Trump people think that they're going to be able to bully and punish China into submission here, I think they are completely wrong about that.
100%. So let's return to the shipbuilding thing that I was thinking about. Nice little statistic here from our friend Arnaud. In 2024 alone, CSSC, the Chinese State Shipbuilding Corporation, built more commercial ships by tonnage than the entire U.S. shipbuilding industry has built since the end of World War II. Okay, so let's let that sit in. Let's say that we have, this trade war, 1.5 million port call, and America's shipbuilding industry, which is defunct and basically rotting from rust. We're going to spin that up miraculously over a 5-year period where we'll continue to produce nothing. As I said, in 2024, we produced not one. They produced more in 1 year than we did for the entire period of the last 75 years. And we eventually, miraculously, are able to churn one out. We are still 75 years behind where they are. Now let's again think about capital markets and efficient market hypotheses and all of these other things. I will remind you of my favorite stat from Joe Weisenthal. The Chinese Stock Exchange in Shanghai is flat to 2009. We are up over, even with the dip, some 100 to 80% just over the last 5 years. Are you more materially wealthy as a country by having that 80% bump in the S&P 500? Obviously, no. We are a massive service-based dominated economy. And I agree, of course, with the idea of bringing back manufacturing. However, you cannot just simply flip a switch. The amount of money it would require to reach even 10% of the CSSC's shipbuilding capacity would make Mike Johnson and Rand Paul have a heart attack. That's just to reach 10%. They don't agree. That's the truth.
Yeah,
so if you don't agree, then just simply condemn us, to our current fate of consuming OnlyFans and pornography and sports betting and Temu and Shein. But don't do some half-assed shit, which is what we're doing right now. Because now we're just going to be poor and addicted.
Addicted, and your wages are going to be lower. Yeah. You're going to have less of a safety net. It is the worst of all worlds. It's taking things that were bad and making them worse. Yeah. that's the direction that they are headed in with all of this. We have to say, though, Saagar, they are borrowing some from Chinese thought.
Yeah,
There's
true.
some strong Maoist sentiments being expressed from the Treasury Secretary himself, Scott Bessent. This was pretty entertaining to listen to. He went on with Tucker Carlson. Take a listen.
What we are doing, on one side, the president is reordering trade. On the other side, we are shedding excess labor in the federal government and bringing down federal borrowings. And then on the other side, that will give us the labor that we need for the new manufacturing, and we're going to re-lever the private sector. So the private sector, in essence, has been in recession during the Biden years. And this is an opportunity to right-size the federal government and unleash the private sector again.
So what he's talked about is how these federal government workers who were laid off, you know, the people who were like researching cancer or whatever, they can now go to work in the new factories that are being brought online, which again, very reminiscent of the efforts to, you know,
Cultural Revolution.
Cultural
Great leap
Revolution,
forward.
put the intellectuals and the scientists to the re-education camp, sent them into the factory. Of course, to your point, there's no actual investment in creating those factories, so the factories aren't actually going to come. It's just going to mean we're going to have less cancer research and people will be poor. So.
Yeah, it is funny. Although if you read the three-body problem, you do know that there are, of course, benefits. As somebody who wants aliens revealed to be to the United States, that was the only benefit of the Cultural Revolution from that book. Sorry, I guess I just spoiled it, but whatever.
Yeah, it's still worth reading.
It's been out since 2006. They made a Netflix document or a Netflix thing about it. Get over it at this point. You know, I can't get it anymore. But you should read the book. Yeah, it's amazing. And again, you know, even almost to defend Mao and all these people, they even had a program at least to facilitate that. They had the Red Army, you know, whatever it was called, the Red Guards and others to facilitate, you know, the movement of these mass intellectuals and state capacity, et cetera. And they had quotas and they had a system. It didn't always work, obviously. You had to come up with the fake things. I do recommend, if anybody ever wants to, you should read Ezra Vogel has a biography of Deng Xiaoping. And Deng specifically was purged and was one of these people who was purged and actually sent to go work in a factory. And his period during the Cultural Revolution and the Great Leap Forward is absolutely fascinating to actually go. And to study it eventually informed the modern Chinese model of where we are today. So yes, if we would like to repeat the mistakes of China, I guess we can. You know, maybe our Deng is somewhere out there. He's a fired NIH worker who will be stitching, screwing the tiny little screws.
Yeah, the little screws
Lutnick.
into
And
the iPhones.
15 years from now, he will come and save us, or she. So.
Well, he's going to be replaced by a robot. So anyway,
That's right.
Also according to Lutnick.
Maybe we need an AI Deng Xiaoping. Honestly, we could do worse than AI Deng Xiaoping.
Listen, I'm coming around to the view that maybe we do need to just accept our fate with the AI overlords because the current human model is not going all that great in my personal estimation. But
I mean,
joke,
look,
people.
for
I
me-
believe in humanity. It's a joke.
I believe in humanity. I believe in democracy, but you can't help but look at the Chinese model and be like, this is obviously better. Like, it's obviously working better than what we have right here. I'm not saying it would work here. Obviously, it wouldn't. We don't have 1 billion Han Chinese, 75 or what more, 80 years of PSYOP population to believe in all this. We're not ethnically the same. Yes, we don't have a 10,000 year history or whatever, or 2,000 year history of civilization and all that. All that said, you can clearly see that there are major advantages to this like well-executed authoritarian model, and that when we're going up against them with a lot of the weaknesses that we have as a result of like degenerate capitalism, that we really are like the caricature in some ways of what they think of us and how they justify their authoritarianism over their population. If you look at many of the results, our own consumer results, our entertainment results, what Americans spend to choose to do their time, obesity, you know, like the constant chase of dopamine hits, like that is what this country is ultimately all about. I was really thinking about that with cars. Like, what distinguishes the American car? Jeeps, which are pieces of shit with coolers and heated seats that are gigantic, that break down every 2 to 3 years.
They're big and comfy.
So, yeah, they're big, they're comfy, they have all these dumbass features, tailgating seats, right, that they charge you $75,000, and somebody who makes 60 grand a year is like, yeah, let me get a 25% APR on that, and I'll pay the monthly at a bare minimum rate for the next 420 months. I'm not even making this shit up. This is reality. This is literally what America, what it looks like. Or you know, you could have something different, but.
Well, I will steal Ryan's point. He's like, listen, one of the reasons I love this country is like our rights, like the freedom of speech. And increasingly, like, you can't feel comfortable to speak out on some key issues, like, for example, Israel-Palestine, and think that that right is still intact. So if we're gonna not even have that, like, what are we doing here? What are we getting out of this arrangement at this point?
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.